hit that power button, and we have some lights. 180 frames a second. Not bad for 1440p, right? This is 4K! Still! RTX 3080 builds are back. Don't worry, this was an empty box. In this video, we're going to go through absolutely everything you need to know about creating the ultimate price to performance RTX 3080 PC. So as always, we're going to show you all of the parts featured, we're going to show you the build process, and of course show you how well it performs, with gameplay benchmarks and the latest AAA titles at 4K max settings. A massive thank you though to Asus TUF, who have actually sent out a load of different components for this video, chosen to sponsor it. It is massively appreciated. They've got components, peripherals, monitors, loads of stuff, and we're going to be checking it out in this very video. Let's actually get this build started, and as always, I'm going to actually do it on top of the motherboard box, so let's tidy up a little bit. Too much stuff, too much tough. The basic skeleton of our build is going to be upon the motherboard, B550, we're doing Ryzen today, and this case. This is the Lian Li 215. This is a mesh case, massive intakes at the front, 200mm fans, tempered glass. If you want ventilation, this is a very good option. It is a little bit more affordable as well, which sort of matches our theme. I probably should say, and I'm a little bit confused by this, that Lian Li sent out a replacement front panel and 2 fans with smaller labels, and I assume this is because that's what you would actually be buying rather than my sort of pre-production units. These motherboards are going to prove incredibly popular because they're not entry level, but they don't cost you any more than they need to. You're not really paying for features that you're probably not going to use anyway. If you want to maybe overclock a little bit later, you'll still be able to do it on this motherboard, but if you're like an extreme liquid nitrogen overclocker, yes, you'd probably want to grab a different board. I do find it very amusing that the whole visual design of this is a lot more exciting than you get on a whole load of more expensive motherboards. We've got this almost like military look about it, which is pretty cool. A few different accents at the top and at the bottom. Plenty of USB ports. We've got BIOS flashback as well, which is going to be useful if you're wanting to go for a 4th generation Ryzen processor. As always, grab your motherboard box, lay your motherboard down flat. I will get something to angle this up so you can actually see. Very conveniently placed TUF Gaming P3 mouse mat. I feel like that was an lttstore.com sort of segue. That was the level we're getting to on this channel now. The CPU that we're using is the Ryzen 5 3600, and you may well be thinking why we're not using a faster or latest generation processor. This is 6 cores and still very good for gaming, especially 1440p and 4K. And if you do decide to get a newer processor, the replacement, if you like, for this at the moment costs around about £100 more, and that's money you could be pumping into a different part of your PC. So if you're going to be playing at 1440p or 4K, you may not actually see any benefit to going for a faster CPU at all. Only time will tell. So raise your little CPU lever like that, then grab your chip, and there is a little gold arrow, and this should line up with the arrow on the motherboard, but just move that with no force until it clips in place, and then lower down that lever. The RAM we're using is from XPG, and you can usually find this a little bit cheaper than some of the competition, but it's gonna vary depending on when you buy. Just open up slots 2 and slots 4. I probably should say that this is Spectrix D60G, and this is 3600 MHz RAM, which if you can get for the same sort of money, it's going to be worth doing. It will allow our processor to fully stretch its legs, and 16 GB is all we really need for gaming. By all means, go for 32 for productivity, but just for gaming, 16 is perfect. A few days ago, I had this hot delivery from Corsair. This is a 2TB MP400 SSD. It is NVMe PCI Gen 3, but this is a very good Gen 3 SSD that's going to get close to saturating the interface. And at the moment in gaming, it doesn't really make any difference between Gen 3 and Gen 4. This may change in the future, but of course this will save yourself a little bit of money while maintaining fantastic performance that really isn't anything to skimp at. Is that the right phrase? Anything to skimp at? Is that right? Is that wrong? Am I making things up again? Because this is a Gen 3 drive, I'm going to put this in the bottom slot and use the M.2 heat shield that they'd provided. But if this was Gen 4, then we'd want to make sure we were using the top slot. And then my favorite thing that I almost always forget is to remove this M.2 heat shield thermal pad, as this is what's going to make contact with your SSD, so it is pretty important. Our completed motherboard combination. Everything ready to go really. We just need to put this in our case and wire everything up and add all of the other components. There's quite a lot. It's easy though, it's easy. Let's take a closer look at our case though. So this Lian Li Lancool 215, it's not cheap, but it's affordable, right? And you still get tempered glass. This is a very thick panel actually. That's one of the things I noticed. The whole design is pretty striking though. I think a lot of people are really going to like this. The whole open airflow chassis thing is still very much a popular thing at the moment. People want to ventilate their graphics cards as well as they possibly can. Why do I get so out of breath? The first step is to actually grab your I/O shield and then push this in that very large hole at the back until it all clicks into place. Once you've done that, you can lay your case down flat, grab your motherboard, and if you are using a case like this one that has standoffs pre-applied, you just need to lower it down until it sort of rests in place, really. I've stood the case up so you can actually see what I'm doing, but I'd advise keeping it flat. Just find those screw holes and then just screw it until it is safe and secure. Having inserted all of those screws, it's now time to think about your CPU cooler. You could use the one that comes in the box, or you could use something that is far more exciting. It's going to give you lower noise levels and of course look a whole lot more blingy. This is the TUF Gaming LC240 RGB. Welcome to the elite Republic of Gamers community. I didn't think TUF was RGB, but okay. The CPU cooler itself, you can see this uses a Asus design, so the pump should be nice and quiet. It's got like a mirror finish on the top as well, and then a TUF Gaming logo that will light up and look pretty. So grab your AM4 mounting hardware, line up the little latch until it clicks into place, grab the plastic ring, and then pop this in once again until it clicks into place. I will be using this as an exhaust, so we grab our fan with the logo facing us, and that way it's now blowing air through and into the radiator and exhausting the heat out the top. Fair play to Lian Li for actually giving you loads of different mounting options for this as well. They've made it a whole lot easier, I have to say. Now comes that really exciting bit of actually lowering your CPU cooler down into place. At this stage then, you should have something that resembles this. Plenty of RGB fans, RGB RAM, pretty jet black design, but a few accents here and there, looking pretty good. It's always worth plumbing in these cables now before we put too many different things in there. So we've got RGB from the fans as well as the fan power themselves. If you're using normal RGB, do make sure you've got the arrows lined up correctly on these little doodahs, as otherwise your RGB won't turn on. While you're here, you can also plug in that pump as well. All of our front panel connections are down here at the bottom. You just need to sort of release them, I guess, from the frame. So just feed them through to the bottom of the motherboard. USB 3 is a little bit further up, and then your power switch, reset, all of that jazz is down here at the bottom. The power supply that we're using here today is actually RGB, which blows my mind a little bit because well, let's just say it's not the essential component of a power supply, but skepticism aside though, this is the CX750F. This is a pretty cool looking power supply actually. It comes in both black or white. 750 watts is perfect pairing really for the PC that we're doing, and it is actually fully modular, so we're not going to need to use any cables that we don't need to use, which should give us a lovely clean and tidy build. Okay, when I asked for the white one, I didn't realize that the actual cables would be white as well. That's pretty damn cool, especially for a more budget's not the right word, but a more accessible power supply. Oh, that lovely cable smell. Okay, it looks like we're going to lose some marks for this Lancool case because the only way the holes actually line up on this build is to have the PSU facing downwards. I guess I could makeshift this by sort of screwing one in. Rubbish. I'll do it just to show you what it would look like, but you probably won't want to do this. Besides, you will actually, of course, get better thermals to that power supply if it can get air from underneath. But, you know, if you're buying an RGB power supply, this is probably what you had in mind. Which just leaves our graphics card that, once again, I have to go raid my current personal living room PC to get the graphics card out of. Bear with me. I should turn this into a radio show. The Mark just goes downstairs, disassembles his PC. No gaming for me tonight then. Oh, I bet you lot feel really sorry for me, don't you? Being able to play on a 3080 in his living room. Can't play any games tonight because he's got to build another PC. Sponsored video aside, it's a very good testament to the TUF though, isn't it? That it can go in a case like this and run without any problems. It does make a little bit of noise in very hot conditions, but to be honest, like, I don't hear it over my sound system. So here is then our 3080 TUF. We've used this quite a lot on the channel actually, and it genuinely is my favourite 3080 that I've tested. I think that the Founders Edition potentially looks slightly better, but I've struggled with coil whine and noise with that. You can go higher end with something like the Strix, which does look a little bit better, but it is obviously a whole lot more expensive. If you just want the full fat 3080 experience, you want to be able to overclock your graphics card while having pretty good noise levels and a little bit of RGB, the TUF is the card to beat. So just remove those PCIe slot covers, grab your TUF 3080 and drop this bad boy into place. And that should be our completed PC. We have our power connections for everything. Fans are all connected really, mostly around the back. You probably want to know about cable management though, and you can see with absolutely no effort, this is what we look like. So this is going to be a very easy PC to tidy up, up. We will of course actually need a monitor though, and yes, you guessed it, this is an Asus TUF 27-inch IPS 1440p high refresh rate screen. Oh, I didn't put deodorant on this morning. Screw on that stand, and then we pretty much have something that resembles an ROG Swift. I mean, we've got nice thin bezels here, but most importantly, that 27-inch IPS panel, FreeSync support, may actually be G-Sync compatible, we'll check in a second, but it certainly will work with G-Sync. Hit that power button and we have some lights. There we go, look at that. I can't even see it, there's monitors in the way. That is RGB everywhere, I like that. Not getting any signal though, which is always a concern. Hey, there you go. Not sure why they didn't come up the first time, it worried me for a second. No keyboard connected, but Ryzen 5, full memory, everything's there. Let's do this. Yes. We have some peripherals. What's this? The TUF Gaming K3. We've got the TUF Gaming H3. We've got the P3. We also have, what's this? The M3. So full TUF peripheral range. Price to performance. You will of course need a copy of Windows. Put this on a USB stick and then insert that into your motherboard, and then once you press F1 to run the setup, now you just need to grab yourself a cup of tea, or if you're feeling not very patriotic, a cup of coffee or similar, and then let it do its thing. You can install games once you've got into the desktop, and we will resume from there. So here we are in Fortnite, our full TUF gaming setup, 27 inches, 1440p IPS, lovely stuff, nice mechanical keyboard, very responsive mouse, and of course our TUF gaming PC. And we're currently getting around, what's this, 198 frames a second. This is max settings with DLSS. Really does work very well actually. The only thing to be aware of is you do get a little bit of stutter when recording with GeForce Experience, but I've seen that on every PC that I've built. And turning on the Nvidia Reflex at the moment seems to introduce a little bit of stutter as well. So just leave it high settings and you'll be golden. We've got an RTX 3080. Let's turn all of these Apex Legends settings up to max. We're actually getting such a high frame rate that we're currently hitting the frame rate cap. You can disable this with a little advanced options launch, but you wouldn't need to with this obviously because you're not going to be able to see those extra frames a second anyway. But there you go, if you're after the perfect 1440p Apex Legends experience, it's got to be this. I mean, there was a tiny bit of stutter with Fortnite, and the Ryzen 3600 probably had a little bit to do with that. But in Apex, this is as smooth as butter. I've not seen a single artifact, bit of stutter, anything. This is glorious. In fact, I'm interested actually, what will we get at 4K? Let's turn DSR on just to have a little look. A slightly lower frame rate as you'd expect, but 131 frames a second. Apex Legends 4K. I mean, I'm speechless. What more do you need to say? Let's do a quick noise test for you though. A little bit of humming, but I mean, with those tuned fans, sounds really good. That's one of the benefits, of course, of having a good airflow case and having big fans. It allows you to get a higher volume of air to go through and have better cooling potential, but without increasing your noise. Everybody's favorite first-person shooter, Doom Eternal. 168 frames a second, 180 frames a second. Not bad for 1440p, right? This is 4K! Still! If you're interested in what the 1440p numbers are, we're currently getting 274 frames a second. 274 frames a second when a game looks this good. Forza Horizon 4, we've gone into the settings and turned them past Ultra to Extreme. I really didn't expect to turn on DSR and actually leave it on. It was more just meant to be an experiment. But there you go, 133 frames a second at past Ultra, now Extreme settings in Forza Horizon. Maybe I just like the Horizons because at the moment I'm still playing Horizon Zero Dawn again. So once I've done that, I'll move on to Forza Horizon 4. Dropping it down to 1440p, and we're not actually seeing a huge jump. I mean, there's a huge jump. But we're now getting, what's that, 150 frames a second up from around about 120, 130. So maybe the CPU is limiting us a little bit, but either way, you're getting the most out of this monitor, so you may as well play at 4K. So here we are then, our price to performance RTX 3080 PC. If you want the very best from the gaming world, but you don't want to spend not a lot of money, but you don't want to spend as much money as some people would suggest, then this has got you covered. You're not only getting a more affordable case that still has full support for brilliant airflow, all of your components, you're getting something that looks fantastic, all of that RGB, but you're honestly not really spending any more than you need to. The only changes that I would recommend would be to get an extra fan to swap out this back one, because it doesn't really sort of go with the rest of the aesthetic. I would upgrade that processor, but there's absolutely no need to do that at first, to be honest with you. I would buy that Ryzen 5. Granted, if you've got the money to do that up front, then sure, but the point is, if you're trying to keep costs down, as you can see, it doesn't really make too much difference in most of the games that we tested anyway. But I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts on this. Do you love this PC? Do you think I should have gone for a black non-RGB PSU and probably saved us all a load of hassle? And of course, if you do want to check out current pricing on any of these components, you can find them all listed down below with my Amazon affiliate links. Don't forget to get subscribed for more videos just like this. Smash that notification bell as well so you don't miss one. And of course, if you do want to see more builds and setups and things like this, you can find them in the end screen. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I'll see you in the next one. I'll see you in the next Geekawatt video.